Welcome to our new deck introduction for Miracle Rogue in the mean streets of Gadgetzan. The Miracle Rogue archetype has been around since the early days of Hearthstone. Blizzard has continually tweaked its power level over the years, adding nerf after nerf to various components of the deck in an attempt to bring balance to the meta. Knowing what cards have gotten the banhammer can explain what the deck's power really is. Conceal used to cost 0 mana, Backstab used to deal 2 damage to any opponent minion, Edwin Van Cleef used to summon with stealth, Leroy Jenkins used to cost 4 mana, and most importantly, Gadgets and Auctioneer used to cost 5. The Mean Streets editions of Small Time Buccaneer, Patches, and Counterfeit Coin have brought some early game options to the list. But to this day, the deck continues to find its power in these cards that have been nerfed for their miraculous ability to exploit the game's mechanics and steal victories from opponents. Your early game with Miracle Rogue usually consists of developing pirates and fending off your opponent's aggressive threats with SI7 Agent, Backstab, Eviscerate, and as well as your hero power. The primary goal is to land a Tomb Pillager onto the board by turn 4 or by turn 3 if you have the coin or counterfeit coin. If you can get some face damage in on some of the early turns, then finding a lethal in the mid game becomes a much easier task. Occasionally you can stumble on an opening hand that consists of Edwin Van Cleef and numerous zero-cost cards. Because of Mean Streets, players have accomplished the Nightmare turn 1 10-10 Edwin more often than in previous expansions, which tends to close out the game quickly. If you can set up an opportunity to do this in the right matchups, then go for it. Be wary of going all in on Edwin against classes that can deal with it using one card, which will also end the game quickly, but not in your favor. If the early Edwin scenario doesn't present itself, then the classic Miracle game plan revolves around Gadgets and Auctioneer. The ideal objective is to gather together a set of cheap spells and coins, land an Auctioneer on the board in the mid game, usually on turn 6, turn 7, and then start cycling. Done correctly, on turn 7, you can miraculously cycle your deck down to 10 cards or fewer. The sequencing of your cycle with the Auctioneer is essential, and many new players to the deck often don't realize how powerful it is simply because they are sequencing incorrectly. While every sequence is unique, if you're new to the deck, remember these things as you start the Miracle cycling process. 1. Use coins first. 2. If you have Backstab, use this before doing other damage or before using Sap. 3. If you have Preparation, make sure you don't waste it on a spell that's already free, and try and maximize its value by using it on a spell that is 3 costs, like Fan of Knives. 4. Realize that Swashbuckler costs 1 mana and gives you a chance to roll a decent spell for Preparation if you don't have one. 5. Don't attack with any other minions on the board until you know that they won't be buffed by Cold Blood or Concealed. 6. You can use the spells like Cold Blood on the Auctioneer if you have a Conceal or your opponent won't answer the Auctioneer. And 7, lastly, make sure you do attack with the other minions before you conceal. Now, it should go without saying that just cycling your deck doesn't automatically win you the game. The other task is to get some face damage in on your opponent throughout the early game using active minions like the Pirates, SI7 Agent, Tomb Pillager, and Azure Drake. Then calculating how much damage you can push from hand using Leroy Jenkins, Cold Blood, and Eviscerate. What makes the deck powerful is that you almost always cycle the whole thing. So finding the combo finisher, while complex, is wonderfully consistent. Miracle Rogue is an incredibly active deck and functions partially as a combo deck. This means that it doesn't usually have room for tech cards because any tech card would detract from its ability to find its win condition. However, there are a few cards that tend to rotate in and out of the list depending on the meta and on preference. The number of copies on Shadow Strike, Deadly Poison, Sap, Swashbuckler, and Conceal is negotiable. Some players even swap out SI7 agents for questing adventurers for an archetype that provides a lot more reach but is more vulnerable to aggro. Also, whether or not you have 1 or 2 copies of Counterfeit Coin is flexible, but one of the drawbacks of Miracle Rogue is that on occasion, you'll find yourself with a nearly full hand that is also completely unplayable until you draw Gadgetzan. Counterfeit Coin is one of the high-risk, high-reward decisions that increases the chances of this type of hand, but also can pull off more Miracle-like synergies with Edwin and the Auctioneer. Miracle Rogue can be an intimidating deck. Like Freeze Mage or Control Warrior, how you manage the complex ways in which the deck finds its victory can be daunting. But Miracle Rogue is in an amazing place in the meta right now, sitting at tier 1 for the first time in 8 months, and possessing an ability to contest aggro decks and absolutely punish aggro's primary counters. If you've wanted to get into Rogue, now is the time. If history is a lesson on this one, then Miracle Rogue will be finding a strong place in Hearthstone for many seasons to come. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.